I think just how head coach Robert Saleh articulated just there in that clip, week by week, day by day, they should be allowing this to play out in real time. And it should really be a meritocracy. That's what ultimately should be the judge. You should play based on off of your merits and off of your production. And right now, when you have a guy like Mike White who came in and executed this offense flawlessly in terms of his decision making, his footwork, his mechanics, his accuracy in a driving rainstorm, he deserves to play the next week, and we'll take it week by week from there. And obviously he has the confidence of his teammates and the supports of his teammates, which is huge. Mike White's football character obviously is not in question at all within this organization, within this locker room, because of how people responded to him. And how else would you respond to him, considering he was 22 of 28 for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns and no picks? That's what the league is supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be about you getting opportunities and keeping your job status simply because of where you originally were drafted. The league is supposed to be about performance. And Mike White right now has shown that his performance should lead to him being the starting quarterback until further notice.
Yeah, and he's showing that on and off the field, of course. Now, another AFC team that notched a big win Sunday was the Bengals, who knocked off the Titans in Nashville. Cincinnati has won 5 of its last 6 games and is set to get Jamar Chase back from injury next week. Lewis, what's the ceiling for Joe Burrow and this Bengals team?
Yeah, respectively, the ceiling is MVP and Super Bowl. That's really what, for Joe Burrow, it's about trying to go ahead and prove that he's the most valuable player in this league. And that's not necessarily what's at the forefront of his mind, but that's his upside. He's that good. And this football team overall, think about some of the people that they haven't had at their disposal, especially on offense, and they are still racking up W's on the road against division opponents and against conference opponents like Tennessee. Let me just say this about Joe Burrow and how good I believe this young man is. He's throwing in crucial situations to a guy named Trenton Irwin, who 99% of the people who watch the NFL have never heard of Trenton Irwin. Never heard of him. He's a guy who languished on the practice squad for the Bengals for 4 seasons, off and on, off and on. In the past 2 weeks, you've seen him show up in key moments, making critical catches. And that's not simply because of how good he is, which you have to give the young man credit, but it's because Joe Burrow is taking players, and as they fill them in, he's elevating their game because he's that special. And there's only a few quarterbacks in the league that can do that. One named Patrick Mahomes, who he's going to duel with this weekend. And right now, he's the front runner to be MVP. So Joe Burrow, take a bow, but keep on going, man, because right now he's got the Bengals rolling.
I mean, him and Mahomes really just upping each other's standards and trying to compete against each other in the best way possible. Now, AFC Championship game, that rematch between the Bengals and Chiefs, set for next week in Cincinnati. That should be a good one. Elsewhere yesterday, Lewis, the 49ers took a 1-game lead in the NFC West, shutting out the Saints 13-0 behind a dominant defensive performance. It was the 4th straight win for San Francisco. Meanwhile, in Seattle, Josh Jacobs had over 300 yards from scrimmage, including an 86-yard walk-off touchdown run in overtime to upset the Seahawks. So, Lewis, what do you believe will be the deciding factor in this NFC West race?
Now, I think it's going to be San Francisco's defense without a doubt. They're on a historic run as far as organizationally with the way they are just shutting people down. I mean, they've given up 15 points or less, I believe, in 7 different games this year, which is on pace for some of the best defenses that they've had in the history of this storied franchise. D'Amico Ryan's the defensive coordinator. People get used to him. Don't get used to him, I guess I should say, out there in San Francisco 49er colors. He will be a head coach this hiring cycle because he's just that good. They've got playmakers at all 3 levels, and right now they're really just waiting for one more guy to come back, that being Eric Armstead, their sensational defensive tackle, defensive end, who when you pair him up with Nick Bosa and the rest of the crew and, Fred Warner, I mean, these guys just have so many different playmakers at all 3 levels that right now it gives their offense the chance to continue to really come together and assimilate all these new pieces together, namely Christian McCaffrey, and hit their stride at the right time. But make no mistake, this is a defensive-driven football team, a physical-driven football team, and the defense is setting the tone.
Yeah, you said it. The 49ers lead the NFL in both total defense and scoring defense. They host Tua Tagovailoa and the Dolphins next week. Lewis Riddick coming back for more in a bit. Thank you.
And Monday Night Football tonight features the Steelers and the Colts. Pittsburgh offense trying to find some consistency. The Colts, on the other hand, playing in their first primetime game with new interim head coach Jeff Saturday. And Lisa Salters will be on the call tonight as she joins us now from Lucas Oil Stadium. And Lisa, it's basically last gasp time for Pittsburgh's season, which is not something we're used to saying about them in November. So how are Mike Tomlin and company approaching these final 7 games?
Yeah, Kelsey, at 3-7, the Steelers are in danger of doing something that has never been done by a Mike Tomlin coach team, and that's finished below 500. Tomlin has gone 500 or better for 15 consecutive seasons to begin his NFL coaching career. And while players say it's not something that's talked about by the coaching staff, it's something that players are very well aware of. Wide receiver Deontay Johnson said, "Everybody knows that stat, and it's crazy to think that this might be his first losing season, and nobody wants that." Johnson said the vibe in the locker room amongst players is one of just trying to figure things out, how to turn things around in time with the goal of finishing at least 6-1. So as Johnson said, they can get Coach T's win column where it should be. Part of figuring things out has got to be getting Deontay Johnson and rookie quarterback Kenny Pickett on the same page. Coming off a Pro Bowl season in 2021 in which he had 1,100 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns, Johnson is currently under 500 yards and has yet to find the end zone this season.
A franchise and a coach that has had so much success, definitely an uphill battle for them the rest of this season. On the other side of this matchup, Lisa, 2 games into the Jeff Saturday era, and the run game, it's been the focal point for the Colts. So Jonathan Taylor, 44 carries in those 2 games. He's had over 230 yards and 2 touchdowns. How's he feeling now after the rough start to the season?
Yeah, inconsistent is the best way to describe this season for Jonathan Taylor. After leading the league in scrimmage yards in 2021, Taylor has missed 3 games with an ankle injury. He's averaging almost a full yard less per rush than he did last year and has only reached the 100-yard rushing mark twice. But Taylor told me this week that his ankle feels better and that it's now just a matter of maintaining his health to be as fresh as possible on game days. Taylor admitted that this season has been a grind. His ankle issues, Frank Reich getting fired, Jeff Saturday taking over. But he said the beauty in the grind is what can happen if you just keep your nose down and continue to work. As for the coaching change, Taylor said everyone loves Coach Reich and was sad to see him go. But Kelsey, he said they can feel Jeff Saturday's passion for the organization, not just when he's coaching, but every time that he speaks.
The energy and the enthusiasm definitely coming through so far. We will see Lisa Salters tonight on Monday Night Football. Lisa, we appreciate it.
Speaking of Monday night, here's Steelers quarterback Kenny Pickett. He's in the building ahead of tonight's meeting with the Colts. He's been better as of late, going back-to-back take on the Colts. And we will check in with Lisa Salters in just a little while ahead of the game. While the Colts run game has been so good lately, Jonathan Taylor has been doing his thing. Yeah, doing his thing. Aaron Rodgers tried to do his thing, but as we know, he was injured. We'll have all the updates, of course, what we saw this weekend in the NFL. So let's start there. In last night's game against the Eagles, which brings us to... Come on, Jalen. Make it hurt so good. I'm going to sing, Tonka. I'm not actually going to sing, but let's check out the Eagles. They got the win over Aaron Rodgers and the Packers last night and did so with an electric rushing attack. Jalen Hurts led the way with 157 rushing yards and became the 4th player in the Super Bowl era with 150 passing and 150 rushing yards in the same game, including playoffs. Now the Eagles improved to 10-1 after this win and now have a 66% chance to earn the #1 seed in the NFC, according to ESPN Analytics. They have the 3rd easiest remaining schedule as well. And as if the loss wasn't enough, Aaron Rodgers left the game in the 3rd quarter with a rib injury, and his status is up in the air for next week's game against the Bears. Jordan Love threw over 100 yards and a touchdown in relief. Here's Rodgers last night.
Yeah, I don't really want to take my mind there, but as long as we're mathematically alive, I'd like to be out there. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot of other conversations that come into play once you're eliminated. And I'll be open to all those conversations. Pride comes to mind, love of the game. But there's other factors that obviously would come into play should we be mathematically eliminated.
Interesting there from Rodgers. We're joined now by our senior NFL reporter, Jeremy Fowler, alongside Hurd Edwards. Guys, welcome. Jeremy, let's start with you. What are you hearing about Rodgers' injury and how that could impact the team's plan with Jordan Love?
Yeah, Christine, I'm hearing the Packers have no hard plans to sit Aaron Rodgers right now. They hope that he heals up here. They're trying to gather more information on that now. So if he were to sit and make way for Jordan Love, 2 things would have to happen. They would have to be mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. You heard him there. He wants to play if they are not. about a 2% chance right now they can still make it according to the metrics. And then Rodgers and the Packers would have to have an open dialogue about saying, okay, it's time to shut it down. I'm pretty beat up here. It would have to be solely based on injury. If you recall, about a year and a half ago when the Packers and Rodgers had their discord, a lot of the issue was Rodgers wanted to be included in conversations in relation to the team. Well, this would be a chance for Rodgers and the Packers to get together and say, okay, it's time to shut it down.
We'll see what happens. They've lost 7 out of their last 8 games. On the flip side, though, Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, they just keep rolling. So, Herm, what stands out to you about what they've been able to do offensively?
Well, they built the offense around his skill set, obviously. A lot of RPOs and things of that nature. But just